This Afiyom Yerushalmi Terumos Terumos. And the article goes by addition on the Tesvav Manalef at the two dots in the header on the fourth line down. Mishataram Shemen Bechule, which in the Vilna is on Avches Amar Aleph. There's no header, obviously, so it's the Mahu Torem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 10 lines down. There's a dot. The line starts with a bottom, and there's the Mahu Torem, and our limud should be as close for all the Am Yisrael, which is Nasum Batzara Rashib. So the Gemara says, the wrong place here in the Kavan. Okay, just a second. Now, I mentioned this at the end of yesterday's shir. How much oil do you have to take as truma on olives? Do you go according to the oil in the olives, because they are made primarily for oil, or lefi ochlam, or according to the amount of food which they contain, which since you can eat them as is, obviously that's a larger amount than the amount of oil which comes out of it. So Amar Rabbi said, I see say midah chilfoi. Let's now from chilfoi. Chilfoi was Ilfa, Rabbi Yochan's chavrusa and friend. It was a famous story that Rabbi Yochanan went back and Ilfa went out to l'schera, etc., etc. But tiny chilfa, we learned chilfa said, Rabbi Omer lefi shamnon, it's machlekes. Rabbi Yonossi says according to the oil, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer lefi ochlon, according to the amount of food. Avolo going in, but regardless, it excludes the pits. They're not taken into account. You measure the olives according to their measure without the pit. Everybody can see it's klubsin. Klubsin are large olives. That there you go to Shein Refi Ochlan, because they're made, evidently, those large olives are destined to be eaten, not to be made oil from. But again, the pits are not taken into account. Rabbi Chanina asked Chananya, boy, Shabbos came. Is this true also in terms of Shabbos? In other words, in terms of Hotzah, that they have a Malach close by the share of Hotzah of Zaysim on Shabbos. Ashkechani, so he found, in fact, Rabbi Omer Bevis. Rabbi says that the shear of chiyuv on taking out olives is amount to make a revius of oil, and that is like Rabbi Shimon and Mishnah and Shabbos Reish Bereches, and that's the shita. So here that you're turning the fee Shamna, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Grogeris, the size of Grogeris, which is a large date, which is the shear of other foodstuffs, and that is like the Tanakama in the Mishnah at the beginning of 8th parak of Shabbos. And that's the shita also here that you're turning lefi ochlon, not lefi shamnon. Okay, Harei shetarim shemen al zaysim. So this is the this header is only the Kavanaki. It's not in the Gemara or in the article. Amar Chananya b'shem Rabbi Hillel. Chananya named Rabbi Hillel. Rabbi Hillel. It was a rarity, Rabbi Hillel. The Pashas said this is the same Hillel Hasheni who made the Luach. And I think the only quote I remember attributed to him Bavli is a Mashiach Yisrael in Sanhedrin. But anyway, Rabbi China said named Rabbi Hillel Afanan Amitinon. We have a Mishnah that is a raya to Rabbi Yosha. Messiah Lahada Tai Rabbi Yosha. What Rabbi Yosha say? Zaysim al Zaysim, Vasi the Kachon. If you take olives and olives, which you are eventually going to press, but not press, you're going to the shear of olives as olives. You're taking grapes on grapes, which eventually you're going to press, but haven't yet pressed. So the truma v'yachzor v'truma yisham. It's truma, and he has to take truma over again. So yet on the other end, Utniya, we learned Mishatarim Shemin al Zaysim Lachila. So you took oil as truma on olives which are going to be eaten. V'Zaysim al Zaysim Lachila, or olives and olives. Yain al Navi Lachila, wine on grapes to eat. Navi on Navi Lachila, and grapes on grapes to eat. V'Nim Lachadorcha, in all these cases, if you had in mind, you changed your mind later and were dorech them and you pressed them, and Tzarech Zav Litrom. Right? You don't have to take up Truma over again. Why not? So it seems to be that it should be according to what we said before. The Zaysim Wasi Lakocham, Navim Wasi Darchan, Truma V'Yachas V'Yitrom. So the Gemara answers, Mibnei Nimlach, because at the time you took up the truma, you did not intend for them to be pressed. You intended for them to actually be eaten as is. Okay, but and so you change your mind, you already say. But halimliach. But if you plan from the beginning to actually press them, the olives or the grapes, so then the halach Rabbi Yeshua is in effect truma v'yachzor b'yitrom. You take the truma where you took, but you have to take truma again when from when you make the oil and when you make when you make the wine. Okay, now we approach the third part of the Mishnah. V'lo davar midavar sheni lo nigram lachto on a davar sheni lo midavar sheni nigram lachto davar shelo nigram lachto davar shelo nigram lachto davar sheni nigram lachto. And in the article there is a header. Lo midavar shelo nigram lachto chulei. Rabbi Amir b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, or in the Akav Amar b'shem Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Sorry, so Amir b'shem Shimon Yob ben Lakish, or Amar Rabbi Abi. He adds an Amar in the Akav Naki. Ksiv, it says Nechshav lochem chumaschem k'dagon min hagoren. It says that the story about Chumas Meiser. You have to make a cheshbon, right? And you have to reckon the truma kedogim hagorim. Mashu mitzaves b'nei Levi litrom min hagamur. He's commanding the b'nei Levi take a truma from that which is complete from goren. Goren is completely processed. Hadam Rosh Asuli Tenu Shipon is teach us you would not allowed to give stalks. So he completely processed. Nigmar Mlachtam. Here about B'Shem Rav Shimon Lakish said, Ma'aser Shigdima B'Shibol, if you took a Ma'aser Rishon, well, it's still stalks. Also, you can't eat from a snack from it any longer before you take off the full Chumas of Ma'aseres. Matam, what's the Pasuk teaches us that? Ksiv, as Kodshei B'nei So Lo S'chalulu V'Lo Tamusu. Now this is an unclear derivation here, right? How exactly we learn out from this Pasuk is very unclear. We learn from it that all meiser, also meiser which is taken before miruach, before you made the pile and smooth it, lo techalulu, don't be mechalel it until before you take off chumas meiser. Okay, so you can't be mechalel, meaning you can't eat it. Okay, we can't eat it before you take off chumas meiser. Okay, the Gemara is going to anyway say it's a smachta. So, what can you be? Are you loka? Is it still? Is it tevel d'oraisa before the Levi is memareachit? Before Levi makes the goran, as we said. Rabbi Ashim B'Shem Rabbi Yonah said, "Masitza Amra the Ein Lokin." The following Brisa teaches us that there is no malchus. The Tnei Tamar you learned over there. Chumas Meiser Shavali Bikurim Mishnei Drachim. Chumas Meiser like Bikurim in two ways, like Chuma Mishnei Drachim, and like Chuma in two ways. So the first way is Nitelis Min Hator Ala Tomei, and the second way is Shalom Min Hamukaf. It's going to take it from Torah and Tomei, and it doesn't have to be taken from the same location, from the same batch. like Bikurim. So you're allowed to take Trumas Meiser Tahara and Meiser Tomei, and the reason is because you're allowed. The reason is the second thing is linked to the first thing because you're allowed to take Trumas Meiser Shalom Mina Mukaf from a different batch. Only Trumas Gedolah you have to take Mina Mukaf from the same batch, and therefore you also can't take from Tahara al Tomei if the batch is Tomei. And the reason why that's an issue is because if you take from Torah to Tomei, we're afraid you're not going to make it. You're going to keep it separate, and the batch will not be truly one batch because you're afraid it's going to touch and become Tomei. And Ochel is Matame Ochel says Kaminokim Rabbanim from Sachin Daf Yudalit. Vosera says Agoran. On the other hand, Chumas Meiser forbids the Goran. You can't eat it, and to until you take off the Chumas Meiser. V'yesh lo shir as a shir doraisa, 1/100th. Ketruma, which also has a shir, but only Rabbanim, of course. Shir of Truma is only Rabbanim, but it has a shir. And in that sense, Bikurim does not aser. You can eat your pros even without having taken Bikurim, and it doesn't have a specific shear. V'islecha oseres es agorin islecha oseres agorin el achamiruach. So the Gemara says, since the Mishnah says that's also only after you became a gorin, so the miruach makes it tevel. Because the goren is miruach, making the pound, smoothing it. And if by the stalks it's also considered tevel, so it should say that it asers. It should have said, we said, ma'aser rishon shegdim also lechol mimenu arai. It just says that also, right? Now it's from it, right? Without mentioning the goren. No, the says, what was the Gemara mentioned? But Oseres Hagoren, right? We're just over here. It says Oseres Hagoren, right? So, what do you mean Oseres Hagoren? If it's without, if it's that means that the miruach made it tevel because it's the goren which is also, and if it was also if shibolim was also tevel, so it shouldn't say oseres goren, it should say oseres. It's forbidden without mentioning goren. So this teacher hadamash ain't looking motivul advartor. So my teacher said you're not located on the tevel of Chumas Meiser until miruach, and that drasha would say kachim they said los kalulu. We said Meiser Shegdim B'Shibon also Chomin Arai, and before you take up Chumas Meiser, and if you do your over Kachim B'Nei so it's only a smachta because we're not talking about achila. We just use it as an asmachta. The Rambam says in this Piskei Halacha that Nichos Chumas Ben Levi Shlokach Meiser Shibolim. Ben Levi took up Meiser from the stalks. Leitin Shumas to the Kohen, you should not give his Truma to the Kohen. Shibolim as stalks. El Koinsimus, so we find him. Ladush V'Lizros, to go through the whole process. He's going to Meiser, Mina Meiser Min Dogan. It's got to give him from the Dogan, from the Goren, after it's fully processed. Meiser Rishon Shekdima B'Shibolim, if you took a Meiser Rishon in the stalks, also Chomin Arai, you're not allowed to even as a snack, come shafish chumaso before you take off the chumas meiser. But im acha makas or makas mardus. No makas deraisa. That was just an asmachtul. There's makas mardus the rabbana. You're allowed Torah min chumas meiser min Torah Torah lechatchila. You take for chumas meiser from Torah and Torah lechatchila because it says mikdoshot mimenu as Hashem is mikdoshot mimenu. Torah min amakuda shabo. We don't actually have that drasha here. And the Yerushalmi, but you're to take as mikdasho mimenu the mukuda shabo, meaning the Torah even on the Tomei. Okay, that's Hadron Lachamisha Lo Yitrumu. On to the second parak, Maseches Trumos. Ein tamim min Torah Tomei. Must take to truma from the Torah and Tomei. If it's regular truma, not trumas meiser. Meiser said he could. Because and the reason we say can't take truma from Torah and Tomei because you might take can't take shlom and mukaf. Being tarmu if they didn't make truma and truma. But you have it Shlomo Namukov is okay, and therefore Mina Torah term is also okay. Bemusamu, in truth, they said, Hayigu Shel Dveila, even though you are allowed to take Truma, Hayigu Shel Dveila Shenitma Miktsaso, part of it became Tameh. Torah Mina Torah Sheyeshba, Tameh Sheyeshba. So since not all of it became Tameh, so you can take from the the part which is not Tameh on the entire thing. Okay, and even he explains here in the Kavnaki based on the Rash, etc., that even though part of you have this huge Igul Shel Vela, part became Tameh, but the rest of the eagles doesn't become Tameh because there's no chibur for Tuma except for the Shiva Mashkim. And date juice, and of it's fig juice, so to speak, is not there's not enough of a glue that once part of it becomes tummy, the whole thing becomes tummy. So if you still have part of which is tar, you can be use that part of that which is tar to make truma on the entire thing. The same is true about a bundle of vegetables. On a pile. We have two rounds of figs. Two bundles. Two piles. One is torah, one is tame. Lo yitrom mizeh. You should not take truma from one on the other. Rabbi Eliezer tame. You can. Let's be afraid you're not going to do minam mukaf. You can be makif them. There is a way to makif them, and the Gemara will explain what Rabbi Eliezer says you can, and what the possible way of being makif them is. Okay, the Mishnah continues, but we're already on Tesayin Ralph, so we'll stop here for today.